Today, right now, as you are watching this, 21 hours of the most consequential peace talks since the 1979 Islamic Revolution just collapsed in Islamabad. JD Vance boarded Air Force 2 with no deal. Trump announced a naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, and a fragile ceasefire is now hanging by a thread. The world's attention is locked on Islamabad. That is exactly where they want it, because while the cameras are pointed at a hotel in Pakistan, BRICS nations are not standing by and watching. They are moving. Gold reserves, energy corridors, a nuclear reactor that just rewrote India's energy future. Strategic infrastructure that does not pause for diplomatic theater. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you will understand why the Islamabad collapse may actually accelerate exactly the shift that BRICS has been building for 3 years. I'm Anastasia and this is Think BRICS. We built this channel to understand the world from the global south up and to bring you with us. The finance ministry decisions before they hit the news. The trade corridors being redrawn while cameras look elsewhere. Growing together, one video at a time. So let's get into it. No hedging, just the picture. On Saturday, April 11th, JD Vance arrived in Islamabad for the highest level direct engagement between Washington and Tehran since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. 21 hours of negotiations, initially through Pakistani mediators, then face to face. Iran's delegation came with a 10-point framework: frozen asset release, Hormuz control, war reparations, the right to peaceful nuclear enrichment, and an end to Israeli attacks on Lebanon. The US countered with a 15-point plan demanding Iran commit to never developing a nuclear weapon, surrendering even a peaceful program. After 21 hours, Vance walked out. Tehran's foreign ministry cited a gap on 2 or 3 key issues. Ghalibaf said Washington never gained his delegation's trust, and within hours, Trump announced the US Navy would begin blockading the Strait of Hormuz. The global conversation was framed as a binary: deal or no deal, war or peace. What that obscures is what was happening simultaneously in Delhi, in Kalpakkam, across BRICS capitals on 4 continents. The real architecture of the emerging order does not pause for 21 hours of American diplomacy. If this kind of analysis is useful to you, consider supporting the channel. Hit super thanks on YouTube or grab us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/thinkbricks. It keeps this work independent and it keeps us going. Now, what is real leverage here? Let me start with a story that got almost no Western airtime this week. On April 7th, India's prototype fast breeder reactor at Kalpakkam in Tamil Nadu reached criticality, the stage at which a nuclear chain reaction sustains itself without external input. India is now only the second country after Russia to achieve this commercially. A fast breeder reactor produces more fissile material than it consumes, runs on plutonium, the waste of conventional reactors, and needs far less uranium. The destination of this pathway is thorium, a fuel India holds in vast domestic reserves. Prime Minister Modi called it a decisive step toward energy sovereignty, not energy security, sovereignty. Did you catch that? While the world argued about who controls the Strait of Hormuz, India quietly moved to make itself structurally indifferent to that question. You cannot sanction a country out of fuel it produces from its own soil. You cannot blockade thorium reserves in Tamil Nadu. That is a 20-year strategic play, and this week it advanced. Now, the broader financial architecture. By early 2026, BRICS Plus nations hold over 6,000 tons of gold, 17.4% of all central bank reserves globally, up from 11.2% in 2019. The trigger was the 2022 freezing of $300 billion US dollars in Russian reserves. The lesson: Western financial infrastructure is a political weapon. The response: BRICS central banks bought more than 50% of all sovereign gold purchased globally between 2020 and 2024. The IMF confirmed the dollar's reserve share fell to 57% by end of 2025, its lowest since 1994. Meanwhile, Brazil shows what resilience looks like in practice. Hit with 50% Liberation Day tariffs, Brasilia did not capitulate. It diversified. Exports to the US fell 3.7 billion US dollars, but Brazil ended 2025 with record total exports, redirecting to China, Morocco, and India at surges of 62 and 52.9% respectively. You cannot tariff a country into compliance if it has already built the exits. So, who really wins from this? The Islamabad Talks Collapse throws Hormuz back into crisis, a waterway through which roughly a fifth of the world's oil previously flowed. Fuel and fertilizer prices have already surged across Africa. Traditional American allies across the Middle East and Europe have shown marked reluctance to participate in strikes on Iran. Washington's coalition leverage is demonstrably weaker than in 2003 or even 2015. The contrast with India's approach is sharp. While Vance was on a plane to Islamabad, India had already facilitated a 40 tons medical consignment to Iran, funded through voluntary donations from Indian citizens. Iran's ambassador called India a reliable and compassionate partner, and India resumed Iranian oil imports in April 2026, while Russian oil sales to India rose 90% in March. New Delhi now sources from more than 40 nations. BRICS is not reacting to the West Asian crisis, it is absorbing it. Meanwhile, Ethiopia pursues AfCFTA integration, BRICS membership, and a WTO bid simultaneously, transforming the grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam from a regional flashpoint into an electricity export corridor. China implements zero tariffs on imports from 53 African countries as of May the 1st, opening a 3.5 trillion US dollars consumer market. And South Africa recorded over 550 million US dollars in defense exports in 2025, armored vehicles, munitions, electronic warfare systems shipped to 42 countries. South Africa is not just joining the multipolar order, it is equipping it. If this trajectory holds, and there is every structural reason to believe it will, the Islamabad collapse will accelerate de-dollarization precisely because it confirms what 2022 suggested. Western financial and military tools are increasingly unpredictable. Every finance ministry in the global south is drawing the same lesson. Gold in domestic vaults, trade corridors bypassing single choke points, energy architecture that does not depend on a single strait. India's fast breeder reactor points toward a 20-year horizon of genuine energy sovereignty through domestic thorium. No equivalent Western aligned economy is building toward fuel independence of that kind. The new development bank funds 5 billion US dollars in joint projects in Uzbekistan alone, digital infrastructure, irrigation modernization, and an AI leadership program co-developed with the UAE. The Indian BRICS presidency in 2026 is wiring together central bank regulators, digital payment architects, and enterprise networks across member states. The proposed BRICS grain exchange and reinsurance framework are direct responses to the disruption happening right now. Hormuz under threat, supply chains fractured, food prices spiking. The West is managing a crisis it helped create. BRICS is building systems designed to outlast it. Nations with diversified portfolios, Brazil, India, South Africa, will prove increasingly insulated from unilateral pressure. The G20 downsized under the 2026 US presidency and, sidling prior hosts, is losing coherence precisely as BRICS gains it. Analysts at the India BRICS dialogue have described the coalition as a Jan-Zat organization, agile, adaptable, forward-looking. That description has never felt more accurate than today, watching a 21-hour diplomatic marathon collapse in Islamabad, while 3,000 kilometers away in Tamil Nadu, a nuclear reactor quietly becomes self-sustaining. The BRICS architecture does not run on news cycles. It runs on reserve accumulation, on trade corridor construction, on a nuclear reactor in Tamil Nadu reaching criticality, on zero tariff agreements covering 53 African nations, on a grain exchange designed to survive the closure of a strait. It holds 6,000 tons of gold beyond the reach of SWIFT. Its most important member just became the second country on Earth to operate a commercial fast breeder reactor, charting a course toward thorium self-sufficiency that no Western economy has attempted. The Islamabad talks failed because the gap between what America demanded and what Iran was willing to give was too wide for 21 hours to close. That is true. But the deeper story is that the global order is being restructured by actors who are not in that room and who do not need to be. The question worth sitting with is not whether the ceasefire holds in the next 48 hours. It is who is building the infrastructure that will still be operating in 2040, regardless of what happens in Islamabad or Washington or anywhere else. One quick note. If you want to go deeper, we just opened Think BRICS Chronicles for history lovers and non-mainstream stories from the Global South, and BRICS Business Channel for trade, finance, and business inside the block. Links in the description. Subscribe and tell us what you want us to cover next. Thanks for watching.